What's going on, everyone? Today is January 3rd, 2024. Hope everyone's doing all right. Henry, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All righty. Today's Wednesday. It is your midweek review. A couple things to note before we get into the markets. Tomorrow at 8:15 a.m., you have ADP non-farm employment change. And then at 8:30, you have unemployment claims, both red folders. So you've got some pre-equity open volatility coming your way. And then on Friday, NFP, non-farm payroll, at 8:30 being released. At 10 a.m., you also have ISM services PMIs. At that 8:30 mark too, there's a couple other news events. You got unemployment rates and average hourly earnings monthly. And then PM session on Friday, you also have at 1:30 a FOMC member speaking. So we do have news. It is news that I hope that you just study as a student and don't try to study as a trader. There's no reason to get into the market. We are in the first week of the year. There's no rush. Let the markets, let yourself ease yourself into the markets. Don't just go right into it, guns a-blazing. Other than that, really, no news on my end. We're just kind of getting back in the swing of things, getting back on schedule. Henry, you got anything?
No, not much. Just kind of taking it easy into the new year, letting things kind of develop, and yeah, we'll jump into the charts. Things are moving as expected so far since we from what we talked about on Sunday's call. So just doing a check-in and let you know where we're at.
All righty, dollar. Gonna bump things up to a monthly this week, just so you guys can kind of see where we're trading. So on a monthly, right, we've revisited this monthly BISI that we've almost fully filled. And I'm going to go ahead and just note this, right? I think price right now is wanting to potentially play in between these two, this BISI and this SIBI. I think we could potentially see price push up into this SIBI. I know that is far away for right now, but something to keep in the back of your mind. There also is a volume imbalance right there, right? So we need price to continue to trade both up closure and down closure through that to balance it out. So just keep an eye on this on a monthly time frame, right? You've got the monthly BISI and the monthly SIBI. That's really all I'm looking at on a monthly standpoint. Just note that we have gone back into this, and note the closure, right? Note December's closure. We dipped into it and we did not close back in it, right? We have yet to even have a single candle close back in it. Right? If I want to note one more thing too, is I'll note this monthly wick right here, right? If we're looking at the consequent encroachment of that wick, you can see that we also hit that all as well, right? That monthly rejection block. So something to just keep an idea of if we start to go higher, where and why. Going into a weekly, couple things to note. We did deliver into the SIBI that we talked about on Sunday. Right, we wanted to see if price from this high to this low pushed higher into a premium array, which we did. I'm curious to note where this week closes, if we close above or below this equilibrium. Now, from that being said, also, you can also note this previous week's high right here. Right, that might be an area where price wants to potentially come and revisit to balance out. But for right now, you know, price did deliver into it, but I'm still kind of just neutral on it. I would like to see where the week closes. Gun to my head, I think we push higher into this. I think that, you know, this is, Henry had stated it earlier when we were together, and he said that, you know, this is potentially probably viewed as a low probability setup, just because if you're looking at price delivering lower, the liquidity that is here is already taken the sell side liquidity, right? Do not forget that this was a big pool of sell side liquidity taken. So price might not be in a hurry to take this low. Now, granted, if we do get back below and here, right, I would highly consider that as well. But as of right now, price is very sensitive to this bullish order block. And with regards to the closure on this BISI, right? The closure is key also, right? Closing above the consequent encroachment back-to-back weeks, and you can kind of see that. So I would expect price to push at least higher in here for the week. When you go down to a daily, you can also see we've met some longer-term extension targets. Don't mind the crazy candle, right? That should show you at least the willingness to redeliver higher, right? So we had talked about how there's a bunch of PDRAs in here. I would like to see if now that we have closed or are about to close on a daily time frame, if we use this SIBI as inversion, right? With the idea that we could potentially come in here and start to revisit this volume imbalance and the rest of this SIBI, right? That's kind of where I would like to see price go. Now, please note that this is also very imbalanced with regards to this wick. So another thing that I would note is that I would quarter this wick, right? I would get the 25, 50, and 75% of this entire wick and just note that. But other than that, really just neutral, waiting. I haven't taken a trade this year. I'm just watching, waiting to see how this first week closes, slowly easing my way into it, watching price when I can, and not really trying to squeeze too much out of myself or the markets 3 days into the new year, right? We've got 362 more days to go, right? It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Don't feel as if you need to rush and go do all the things that you want to do and accomplish today or this week, right? Build an environment, build a plan, know when and where you're going to slowly start getting yourself accustomed to your flow state in the market. But other than that, right, there's not a whole lot that I can do right now. I would prefer if price is going to go higher into this SIBI right here, right? It's how we respond in these PD arrays. It's how we respond in this premium array in here, right? This breaker, this volume imbalance, this SIBI, right? How do we start to identify price potentially inverting premium arrays, right? And so we don't have enough data right now to understand whether or not it's going to do that. So I sit on my hands and I wait. Other than that, that's really it. Those are the things that I'm looking out for going into the back half of the week. I'm sure NFP will do something and give us a little bit more data going into next week. Other than that, that's it for me. Quick and easy. Henry, are you?
All right. Okay, and we'll get into indices. I put a couple things in Firsthand Social, so y'all might have seen some of the commentary about price trading back into the weekly BISTs that we talked about on Sunday's call. I'll just go quickly into the indices, and we can see how things are playing out so far. So like we talked about on Sunday, we now have this monthly BIST here, starting on ES, and then we'll go into NASDAQ. So your monthly chart, we've got this BIST formed here between this candle's high and this candle's low. We still have a lot of time left in the month, 28 days left. So it's a bit early to say for certain if we're going to reach all the way back into here this month. But what we can likely see is that price is going to come back into overlapping PD arrays. So here, I'm going to drop down into a weekly chart. And something I like to look for when we have multiple PD arrays in the form of inefficiencies. So here we have this buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency, this BIST between this candle's high and this candle's low right there. And then we have a volume imbalance here between this candle's close and this candle's open. And then we have the BIST below right here between this candle's high and this candle's low. When we have multiple inefficiencies like that, and you see them failing to support price higher and continue the bullish order flow, which we had going on here, when you start to see them fail, I tend to expect price to return to overlapping PD arrays. And so what I mean by that is where we have something like a BIST right here and an old high together. So instead of when this fails to support price, this BIST up here, for price to just come into the volume imbalance and then move higher, I would expect overlapping PD arrays to trade. So I'd expect this area to trade down here, where we have this old high and this BIST together. And so when we look down into the daily chart, what we can then expect is when we start trading through here, through this weekly BIST that we had, and reaching into the daily or weekly volume imbalance, we can expect that continuation to occur down into the lower one. And so you can potentially find, even though we've been bullish on the higher time frames, you can potentially find shorting opportunities to take price down into sell side liquidity below this low, which is also the high of the weekly BISI lower. And so as we look into what's next for ES, I would expect a continuation down into the overlapping PD raise. So it's not too far to go now, but the 47.38.5 level right here, this overlapping old high and the BISI right there. And then if prices to extend further beyond that, then the next area I would look to is the consequent encroachment of the weekly BISI. So if I turn this on, the middle line, you can see that that is right about at 47.04.5 or so, right there at the midpoint. So that's pretty much it for ES. What I'd look for now is, do we continue to see displacement lower on the daily, the 4 hour, the 1 hour time frames? Then that can potentially tilt its hand toward price trading into here and here. Or do we see displacement back toward the upside? Then we can start looking back toward the high again. So again, just taking it pretty easy into this week, not expecting a whole lot out of the market. There's a lot of red folder news. We did have FOMC minutes today, and then NFP on Friday as well. So just being cautious of those things and kind of allowing the market to develop a little bit more before we get more into things in the later part of January and into February. NASDAQ, same idea, right? Monthly chart down here, or a monthly BISI down here. It's an area price can potentially work back toward if we start failing the weekly PD raise, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Here I marked out the monthly high from November as well. So price can trade back into that area. That would be an immediate rebalance. So it's trading back down to leave no inefficiency behind. So if there were a gap left here, and this candle closed here and the next month opened, then you would have a BISI right there, right? But if this trades all the way down to this monthly high, that would be an immediate rebalance. So no inefficiency would be left. It'd be like that. Okay, so that's the next area that I expect price to trade to, is the immediate rebalance on the monthly candle. And then dropping down to a weekly chart, we can see the same thing we saw on ES. So we see the first PD array fail, and so I look to overlapping PD arrays. So here we have the old high in confluence with the weekly BISI. And now you can see that today we actually got closure just below the consequent encroachment of the weekly BISI. And so the next area I'd expect NASDAQ to likely trade to would be the overlapping PD arrays right here at 16,410.25. Now, again, if you see price continue to trade lower and get closure through the weekly BISI, then you could anticipate price potentially making a deeper retracement down into the highest time frame, the monthly BISI down here. But as for this week goes, in the next few days, just expecting price to continue down into the overlapping PD arrays down here. On the daily chart, we can refine things a little bit more. So you can see today we traded down into this daily volume imbalance, reached just below the consequent encroachment of the weekly BISI. And then as we work down toward the overlapping PD arrays there, you can see we do have another daily volume imbalance right here. And then just below where we'd have those PD arrays overlapping, this old high with the weekly BISI, we have another daily BISI right here. So if price is to reach into here and wick a little bit past it, this is the area where price could reach for. It's old inefficiency right here. That's pretty much it for me on the indices. Carson, you have any last thoughts here? I think you're muted.
I'm all good.
Okay.
Tomato, tomato for me.
All right,
good.
then that covers us for your midweek market review.
Short and sweet, easy peasy. Hope you guys have a safe week outside and inside of the markets. Please do not trade on Friday. If you're new and you have that feeling as if you need to trade, you don't. And if you've already traded this week and you're up or you're down and you want to feel as if you want to make more or get it back going into tomorrow and Friday, you don't need it. You don't need it. We're growing up this year. Market maturity. You guys got it.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your week, y'all, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Peace.
Take care, everyone.